So I watched the Grammys tonight, which is pretty uncharacteristic of me because I don't think I'm what you would call a lover of music. I love songs, and there are certain artists like Patti LaBelle that I mean, they've changed my life. I absolutely love them, but I'm not up on the latest artists and the latest songs. I couldn't recite lyrics to you or really much of anything of that nature. So watching the Grammys was kind of weird for me because it's out of character. But I did. Um, and I'm not sorry I did. And the thing that everybody and the blogosphere world will be talking about tomorrow is Rihanna sitting next to Chris Brown. And I put up a status on Facebook tonight, and those of you who follow me on Twitter saw it because my Twitter and my Facebook are linked. And I said, Dear Rihanna and Chris Brown fans, just because he's not beating her ass doesn't mean your ex won't beat yours again. Some friendly advice. I realize that that may have been somewhat harsh. I'm okay with that, but I do realize it. And it got me to thinking tonight because young people in their 20s started quoting apparently a Rihanna song, What's Love Without Tragedy? And the younger generation all sort of clamored to say that, sometimes love is pain, and I'm so happy that they're together, as though this is behavior that is worthy of emulation. And that's kind of what prompted me to post that status. I have wondered ever since I stated it in my, I believe, first video of 2013, that how I was going to broach the topic of my PTSD, my post-traumatic stress disorder, a psychological disorder for which there is minimal treatment and no known cure, but is acknowledged as a viable medical / psychological condition. I wondered if I was going to make it incredibly dramatic with an intro and deft editing, and I can't do any of that. It all feels wrong. So here we are, and I guess now is as good a time as any. I guess I'm as ready as I'm ever going to be to talk about it. This is something that my family doesn't know, my friends don't know. People, you really have to be in my innermost circle, and even some of them don't know. Many people who spend significant amounts of time with me wonder, or hypothesize that something's wrong, but they simply don't know. My PTSD kicked in, I want to say 5 years ago. But it is an accumulation of traumas. It is as the result of an accumulation of traumas that I faced starting from 12 years old on up through my 20s to about 27. And some of it I think that you guys will be able to figure out on your own. Obviously, the sexual assault that repeated sexual assault that I survived. What really, and that greatly contributed, but what really kicked it into high gear was a relationship that I have never talked about on the YT, that I was in, a romantic relationship. And I guess there's a couple of reasons why I've never talked about it. And some of that really is the PTSD, because there is a fear that there could be backlash, because this individual that I'm speaking of is alive and well. Well, alive. I can't speak to as whether or not he's well. And so there's this sort of, although we're in two very different states, there is an irrational fear that there will be repercussions as a result of this conversation. And I will not walk in 2013 living in fear. So I'm bringing this to you now. I have to give him a name, and that's always the hardest part, because I do these things so off the cuff. I guess I can call him Jerome. Jerome and I, the circumstances under which we met are kind of, maybe that's giving away too much information. God, I should have thought about this first. But needless to say, we met when David and I were on a break. He was not from Boston, but that's where I was living, and he came up to Boston and subsequently ended up moving in with me. And without going too crazily into the ins and outs of this relationship, it was abusive. It was abusive in every permutation of the word that a person could surmise. I mean, emotionally, psychologically, physically, sexually, it was abusive. And there were times, and it really is the physical abuse that planted the seed for post-traumatic stress. There were times when he would beat me so badly that I prayed. I would literally be on the floor with my hands over my head praying that he would kill me and get it over with. And I would never fight back. I would never fight back because it was classic battered woman syndrome, insofar as the idea of I can't hurt someone that I love even if I'm defending myself. And when you couple that with the battered women syndrome, there's this mentality that somehow if I'm getting hit, it's because I've done something wrong. This is my fault. If I did or said or acted or fill in the blanked differently, then this would not be happening to me. But since I didn't, it is. See, that's how they get you. That's the psychosis that comes with those kind of relationships. During the course of that relationship, I was beaten with objects. I was stabbed, and my main trigger came as a result of an incident where I had run into the bathroom to hide during one particularly violent episode. And he kicked the door to the bathroom in and pushed me ass over tea kettle, head over heels, into the shower. And turned the shower on. Jesus. He turned it on scalding hot and burned me. Give me a second, y'all. Um, and so as a result of that, one of my primary triggers is the shower. I find it difficult to step into the shower because I have flashbacks. And in my mind, crazy though it might sound, I am waiting for the door to burst open and for him to push me in again. And that is essentially how PTSD can present itself. And I'm saying this for people that don't know, because I have to assume that there are those of you out there who are just not aware of it. People with PTSD typically don't sleep at night. They typically have nightmares and or flashbacks. And we all, and this is kind of the tie that binds us all, we all have these emotional triggers where a scent or a person or a word or a place can click on the memory of the trauma, and in that moment we're reliving it. We're experiencing it as though it's happening right then and there. Sometimes I'll be in my head, just thinking, and one word or one thought will travel to another thought, will travel to another, and suddenly I'm back in that place, and I literally I'll say something, I'll blurt something out. It's almost like Tourette's, where I just sort of have to speak to bring myself back to the current state of where I am. I am not being medicated for this right now. Y'all getting all my business tonight. I've tried different medications. I've been placed on different medications. And I have a very sensitive body, and the side effects sometimes are just kind of crazy for me. So I try to keep myself calm and not be in situations where I experience flashbacks. Showering is a struggle for me. A lot of times I just get washed up in the sink and keep the door wide open, and that is easier than trying to actually stand in a shower. If God should be so generous as to bless me with the kind of house that would allow me to have like a jacuzzi, bathtub, something big and wide and open, like I wouldn't have a problem sitting in a bathtub, but it's the standing in a shower that really gets me. And so this is what I deal with. There's other stuff too. I mean, I have trouble going to movie theaters. It's a trigger. Sitting in a movie theater is a trigger for me, because I had a sexual, my first sexual assault occurred in a movie theater down the street from my house, watching Batman Returns. And for the record, I really am coming to a point, because I could draw this out for hours, but I'm saying all of this to say I'm, watching the younger generation tonight applaud Chris Brown and Rihanna's reunion and public display of solidarity. Really did get me to thinking. Now, I am not going to be the one to say, shame on you, Rihanna, this is a horrible thing that you're doing, and think of the children and all of that. That's not my place to say. Nobody knows, and this is the point that I really want to get across, nobody knows what happened in the car on that fateful evening that resulted in the assault on Rihanna. We only see the aftermath. We don't know the specifics. Where I can speak from experience is that in your 20s, in your childhood, through your 20s, you're really taught to follow your heart. It's life experience and your 30s will really teach you to follow your heart after having a long conversation with your head. And my hope and my fervent prayer is that Rihanna did that. And so whatever's working for them, I hope that it works. But this dynamic should never, ever be the litmus test by which we judge all potential reconciliations where physical abuse has taken place. Really, any kind of abuse has taken place. Let me clarify. Because if this is to work, it will be a very, very, very atypical situation. The relationship between myself and Jerome lasted, 6 months, 7 months. By the grace of God, I found my way out of it. And ended up going back to David. And y'all know how that turned out. But lesser of the two evils. But the scars left on me by that relationship are not just physical. I wasn't born with this disorder. I developed it. And I pray to God that I'm reaching somebody with this, because this is the hardest conversation I've ever had to have with y'all. Bar none. The hardest. But I just want somebody out there to see what these kind of relationships can do and will do in some circumstances to a person. Every day that I can be flashback free, every day that I keep an emotional keel is a victory for me. So please don't feel sorry for me. Know that I'm making it, and know that I'm healing in my own way and in my own time. But this had to be discussed. And I'm glad I could talk about it with you. Until next time, YouTube. One love.